everyone. Welcome to Eden Eye Tarot, where we illuminate your stars and your cards. Welcome back. My name is Micah. I will be your astrologer and your tarot reader for today. We have a little bit of a late video. Please forgive me. I was out on a gig last night and I did not get home until this morning. And then my whole sleep schedule was thrown off. Talk about Mars, Neptune, trines. We were doing, I'm a Capricorn rising, and so Mars is in my seventh house, Neptune is in my third. So I was literally working, doing something very intuitive in the marketplace, and I was driving home late at night. Sleep schedule completely fucked. So I did have to take a little bit of time to rest today. But we are back at it again with the tarot and the astro weather, and late is better than never. So before we get into this video and really get to know what is going to be happening, what kind of energy we're working with for the week of October 27th going into November, as well as the full moon at the end of the week. Please go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. That would help the channel grow immensely. I would really appreciate it. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by next year, 2025. So I think we can do it. Easy. But if you could tell a friend to tell a friend, that would be amazing. So let's go ahead and get into the energy for this week. And so, of course, we have Halloween. Very spooky. If I can, I'll insert some sort of like spooky music here. If not, then just imagine it. Okay. I have lots of new ideas about like what to add into the videos because I have an idea about kind of what I would like these videos to be like. I am not one for like super serious videos when I'm talking like with clients or, just being like super serious in all business. I love to add in humor. And so I'm trying to learn quite a few new things as far as like adding in little humorous things into the videos. And so anyway, that's a bit of a sidetrack. Let's go ahead and get into the astro weather as well as the tarot weather for this week. Like I said, we have the full moon at the end of the week in Scorpio, and then we also have, of course, Halloween that comes right after right after the new moon in Scorpio. I had to like calculate there for a second. But before we get into the astro weather, we are going to be talking about the tarot weather, which brings me to the card of the week that we are working with. We're working with the Knight of Pentacles. So when we are looking at this week, we can be looking at, a lot of new opportunities as far as, finding new opportunities with finances or security, or just really focusing on security, because obviously that's very broad. But I think when you look at the Knight of Pentacles in particular, it's not just being offered something that can give you more security. It's more so, I think, I attribute this card more to like skill development, focusing on the quality of something rather than the quantity. The Knight of Pentacles has just one coin, and he's focusing on it. And he is the only knight in the suit of the tarot that is not moving. He is standing still, really focusing on his one singular coin. It doesn't matter about how many coins he has. He's making sure that this one is a quality. So I attribute this more to fulfillment of quality of work rather than the quantity. And so I think that, especially with what's coming with this week astrologically, I think that really fits. Can you be offered something that grants you a bit more security and, come into better resources? Sure. But I think it's also true that, you could be getting, because knights are messages, right? Or knights are messengers, right? And so I think it's equally possible that this week, especially as we get towards the end of the week, that there can be some messages that come up surrounding finances, or some shocking messages that come up surrounding finances. Not just, about receiving finances or receiving security, but also messages that are more so talking about what you owe. And so I think that's something that we can expect, definitely with the Knight of Pentacles. But all around, it's more so about quality and finding security, not just in our environment, but also in ourselves, finding the stillness. And so that is the card for this week. And so let's go ahead and get into the Astro Weather. Okay, so we are starting out on Sunday with the moon still being in Virgo. When we have the moon in Virgo, we're focused on preparations, organization, writing out the to-do list. More, I think, is very fitting for Sundays in general, because we're oftentimes preparing for the work week ahead. The moon in Virgo definitely lends to that. It's a bit more detail oriented, and so it can be, very much focused on preparations for the week, what needs to get done, especially since we're looking at some squares that are coming in with the moon from Venus in an opposition, of course, to Saturn. And so there can be this very serious air about Sunday, about more so about what needs to get done. Moon in Virgo, the moon is about our emotions, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. And so I think there can also be, like, while there is this kind of energy of, preparations, there's also this nervous energy as well, especially when we're talking about oppositions to Saturn. And so things can get a bit serious. People can be a bit more somber as far as their emotional state goes, but very tapped into reality, definitely. When we have the squares to Venus, this is where I think the kind of anxiety comes in, because it's, very much like, okay, I need to get this done, and I'm very busy. I'm running errands and everything like that. But Venus can be like what we're spending money on, or what we're, spending comfort on, or like where we find comfort as well. Sagittarius is very expansive. And so it can be either like spending a lot of money on the necessities, or spending more than expected on the necessities to prepare for the week, or to prepare for weeks ahead, even, or just kind of feeling like you don't have enough energy to get things done. Either way, I do think that there's kind of like this push and pull with Sunday. Whether it is that you spent a lot on the necessities, or you just feel like, I know I have a lot to do, but I just don't have the energy for it. Something is kind of lacking with that square to Venus, in particular. Or it can just, be like, I feel like I would like to really have fun, but this is what I need versus what I would like to do. Because what I would like to do is Venus. It's, I would like to, do maybe, get together with friends. I would really like to, spend money on something that's a bit more pleasurable, in conflict, in that being in conflict with what is actually needed as well. It could also be a day that you're just spending a lot of time in the car. Sagittarius can be like travel. Usually it's long distance travel. But it can be like, I'm just spending a lot of time in the car, or traveling, and I really need to, kind of be in one space to be able to kind of, maybe get things done a bit more in private rather than being out and about. So it can be also like just spending too much time out. And you're like, where's the time gone? Because Saturn is going to be time, especially because Venus and Saturn have that mutual reception between the two Jupiter ruled signs, Pisces and Sagittarius. And so just keep that in mind. There is definitely a lot of like movement and kind of like nervous energy with Jupiter energy and Mercury energy being in the mix. The difference between the two energies is very much like the questions and the debate that happen, versus just kind of like the vibes. And so it's, definitely that feeling on Sunday. So when we look at Sunday in particular for the tarot weather, we have the Nine of Swords. So the Nine of Swords is actually about losing sleep, which I'm not surprised. Saturn in Pisces can be restrictions on sleep. I would know that in particular. I definitely am experiencing that today. But yeah, it can be, some issues with sleep, or, losing sleep as well. But it's also this feeling of, self-doubt, which is definitely like, I think, a Moon and Virgo thing. Or like the things that we are saying to ourselves are kind of like building momentum. and they're keeping us up at night. And so it can be like, your mind just cannot stop working. And so it's not able to relax at all. And so I think that's what we are seeing a lot of on Sunday. I think with this being in mind, don't force yourself to um, to sleep if your body is not ready to sleep at the time. I think it'll definitely come when it comes with this particular day. That's just kind of like advice as far as like somebody that does have insomnia. But the Nine of Swords also is just like, if you're up, be productive. It can really help, I think, to run off some of that nervous energy as well. Be very cognizant also of like what you're saying to yourself. Like we said, that those self doubts or like the overthinking can sometimes build momentum when we're talking about the Nine of Swords, and that can be the result. The resulting thing can be losing sleep or losing inner peace. And so I think Sunday's a really good day for like, some private meditation, Saturn and Pisces, or, just even taking some time to be a bit nicer to yourself, to treat yourself in a way that is necessary to kind of bring things into a more grounded state. So that is Sunday. When we go into Monday, we have quite a few different things going on. We have the moon still in Virgo. It's getting ready to transition into Libra. But for right now, until the evening of Monday, or Monday night, actually, the moon will still be in Virgo. And of course, the moon will be ruled by Scorpio. Today, we have some really nice sextiles going on between the moon's ruler for that day, as well as sextiles going to Mars and Cancer. Also, we have an opposition from the moon to Neptune. So today is a very sensitive day. We also have Venus squaring off with Saturn. And we also have the moon squaring off with Jupiter. So what does all that mean? Essentially, today is a really sensitive day. It is a day where it can be, full of private planning or just like kind of quietly planning. But because we are in a more active time during the week, I wouldn't be surprised if, we have more of a sensitive approach to communicating with other people. It can be a time, because of that Venus Saturn square, that we're a bit overly optimistic when it comes to communication, or that when we're approached with serious conversations, we're doing the Venus and Sagittarius thing, which is like, let's just like skip over the seriousness of this, enough with the heavy. And that is all of those aspects happening with the moon. It's like, I don't want to do the heavy stuff, even though the moon in Virgo is being ruled by the very heavy kind of energy of Mercury and Scorpio. It can be like, I just don't want to do the heavy. I want to kind of find freedom from that. I want to release. And so I would just say, just be very careful about trying to sweep things under the rug. Don't be surprised if people are really trying to get you to, again, do the Saturn and Pisces thing, and reminding you to almost like be serious. There can definitely be, this feeling of, this isn't super important. We have the moon in a mutable sign, and then we have those squares with Venus in Sagittarius, which is also a mutable sign. Saturn is in Pisces, which is also a mutable sign. So we've got lots of mutable stuff going on, and lots of dynamic energy. Really, the only fixed energy is Mercury and Scorpio, which is contributing, along with Saturn and Pisces, that reality check during this day, and wanting to dig things up to be able to create closure. Everything else is very mutable, and it wants to move past it, or it wants to transition out of it. And so I do think today is a great day if you're willing to be serious and really sit down and talk to somebody. It can be a very productive day to find resolutions, and move through things that might be hard to talk about in a better way that's very open and honest, and then kind of like move past them in a productive way. But if not, yeah, I can definitely see quite a few people being told to be serious when they're faced with a serious or uncomfortable conversation. and they're just kind of like, no, like it's not a big deal. Let's just kind of move forward, or just being very aware of, is it worth skipping over? Is it worth getting hung up on? That will be the key, I think. For Monday, there we go. We have the Ten of Pentacles being the card for this day. The Ten of Pentacles is focusing on the relationships. And like we have already talked about, this day in particular is focusing in on the relationships. The Ten of Pentacles can definitely be about like having all of the more materialistic things nice and grounded, settled, done. But it's a more of also a warning, just saying that it's not the materialistic things that make that are the focus. You have all those things, great, but what about the relationships within the home? Those relationships and those people that you are working with are what make a home a home. Or in this case, it could also be like, since it's Moon in Virgo, it can be like what make a team a team. Your team might be able to create a lot of great things that are tangible and are very productive and make things work and move forward, and that are just very practical. But what attention to detail are you paying to how people feel? Especially since we have that moon opposite Neptune. I think, some people can feel swept under the rug if you're not trying to have those serious conversations. They feel like they're being blown off, essentially pushed aside, or that their feelings are being pushed aside. So just be aware of that for Monday. All right, for Tuesday, we have the moon that's finally moved into Libra, and it is making a nice little sextile to its ruler, Venus in Sagittarius. Today is a day where I think you're feeling extra sensual, a little flirty. It's definitely a great day for being social, for sure. Things get sexy. We have the sun in a Mars ruled sign, and we have the moon in a Venus ruled sign. And so it can be a very creative day, true. The thing I want to focus in on here, though, is that the moon will be crossing not just over the South Node, but also over Lilith. And so it can bring up issues from the past, possibly with people from the past. And it can bring up maybe like we're a bit overly permissive with our relationships, and maybe what boundaries need to be set or reestablished. Where are your boundaries this day is the big question. Really, that's all I have to say about Tuesday. We do have the Five of Pentacles being the card of the day for Tuesday. There is some sort of lack that comes with the Five of Pentacles. There's always help. And I wonder if part of today is like, feeling like you're doing something very much alone. Sagittarius, Venus and Sagittarius can be, it can take on a lot as far as relationships, and it can be like overly generous. And I think with the moon in Libra, it's questioning, where am I being overly generous? And there's no sort of reciprocity. Where is my support? I think is also why the Five of Pentacles is coming up, because it's not always about like financial restriction or like some sort of financial hardship with the Five of Pentacles. It's saying, I don't have enough of something is the basis of the Five of Pentacles. And so it can be like, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy. And this person seems to have a lot of time and a lot of energy, but they're not contributing the same thing that I am. And so just keep that in mind. I think that's definitely what we are going to be facing on Tuesday. And I think it will be a great thing to kind of reflect on as we continue into the week. And we start having these more intense conversations surrounding our relationships. We're going to be in the Mars-Pluto opposition for a while. I know I talked about it last week in particular, but we're going to be in this for a good minute, because, of course, we will have the Mars retrograde. That'll be in December. And so we'll still be kind of in that same energy. And so just keep all of this in mind. What's going on with the relationships. It'll, I think, really play a part and be rehashed during the better part of not just the rest of this year, but going into next year as well. Also, I think this day could also lend to maybe like overspending or just kind of overindulging as well, with Venus being in Sagittarius. You can, be going out to dinner with a partner or a friend, and you're like, wow, I didn't realize I spent that much on food. Or you're, being a bit extra generous, and you not only pay for your food, but you pay for somebody else's. That can be positive, sure. But when we're talking about Lilith is the dark feminine energy. And so it's like, kind of like, where am I being restricted when it comes to that expansiveness with other people? Where am I being taken advantage of? Is really that whole kind of trifecta right there with the South Node and Lilith. So just to be mindful of that, because we're also looking at kind of what is lacking in general in our relationships, as I said before. On Wednesday, we still have the moon in Libra, but we are adding in a little extra spice with Mercury and Scorpio opposing Uranus and Taurus. The moon will be in a nice little trine with Jupiter and Gemini. And so there's a lot of communication or deliverance of messages that's coming through, especially when it comes to shocking messages or notifications coming through about what we owe, or shocking, intense emotional messages from others when it comes to possibly feelings that you weren't privy to that have kind of just been simmering into like a bit of resentment. Or this is, like we were talking about before for Tuesday, it can be like people kind of blowing up on you and saying, like, I feel like this isn't fair. And I feel like, this has been happening for a long time. I could totally see that happening with Mercury and Scorpio opposite Uranus and Taurus. It can be, just kind of explosive communication that's kind of coming out of nowhere, as well as kind of like that shocking like news when it comes to things such as finances or resources, both on a personal level and on a worldview as well. This is a great day for connectivity because of the moon making that trine with Jupiter in Gemini. But I would say again, I think because we have so much Venus and Mercury energy going on today, the tone of the conversations are a bit shocking by nature. Along with this, for the card of the day, we have the Knight of Swords. The Knight of Swords is communication coming in or some sort of news being delivered. It's also a card that has a lot to do with kind of feeling like you are fighting against resistance or fighting an uphill battle, which I imagine if you have information coming up from a past or that you thought you kind of laid to rest and it's kind of coming back up again in a very shocking way. I could see that also coming through with the Knight of Swords. And the Knight of Swords is very much more so than any knight is more of like a battle. It's quick conversations or quick receiving of messages. And let's remember that not maybe in this illustration, but in the original Rider-Waite illustration, we see the knight literally going against the wind with his sword pointed towards whatever war or whatever direction he's going into, ready for battle, ready to slice and dice some things up. And I think that's the general energy for today is like, defense. Other than like, getting messages, it's defense. It is being ready to go into battle, whether that battle is being brought to you or you're bringing it to another person. That's definitely the feel of today. All right, getting into Thursday, we still have the moon in Scorpio, or not in Scorpio, in Libra for the better part of the day. But here's where things start to heat up. We have the moon in a square with Pluto, in a square with Mars in Cancer, and then you have Mars in Cancer and Pluto in Capricorn, of course, in their opposition together. This can be a day where you can really feel the overbearingness when it comes to relationships with other people. You can feel like, people are being a bit obsessive, jealous, even a bit manipulative when it comes to relationships. I would just take it easy today. Take things one step at a time because the card for Thursday that we have is the Queen of Swords, which is about mental clarity. Do not let anybody goat you into responding too quickly. The Queen of Swords in particular is about like complex situations, and it is Libra. It is kind of like a very fragile detente of balance when it comes to navigating certain relationships. because it's a moon in Libra, it's really focusing in on where are your boundaries. The Queen of Swords is also somebody that has been through quite a bit of shit, but they don't let those bad experiences jade them and cloud their vision. This can be something that maybe is a bit hard to do today. You can be being triggered by the past, or being triggered by like past, extreme uh, shows of power when it comes to relationships, especially with authority figures, possibly in the workplace or within the family. But just take things one step at a time. Take your time to reflect. Take your time to formulate your answers in almost like a very diplomatic way. I think that's the name of the game for Thursday is relationship politics. Think very much Libra, think very much the Venus politician. Sometimes it's best to give a non-answer and know when to talk and when to just kind of shut up. Because that opposition between Mars and Pluto definitely can be hard to do that. And so if you can't, if you find yourself, just kind of going off on somebody, don't feel bad, but definitely take the time to reflect on that and what triggered you about that interaction, so that you can find the clarity that the Queen of Swords has and then move forward in a much better way. On Friday, we have the new moon in Scorpio. So I am going to make a completely different video about the moon in Scorpio on its own. And so I'm not going to be going over the astrology of the moon in Scorpio here in this video, but we will talk about the tarot weather that we have for Friday. We have the Two of Swords, being stuck between a rock and a hard place, or changes within relationships. It can feel like you're like, I don't want to cause any sort of emotional upset, but it seems like the upset is coming to me. It's coming to my doorstep. The Two of Swords in particular is the moon in Libra card, ironically, even though at this point the moon has moved into Scorpio. And so it's a lot about, I think, like being a bit more penetrating when it comes to what is and is not being said in a relationship. And what do you do about that? Do you cut things off, or do you just kind of let them go as they have been going now? Remember, when the moon is in Scorpio and it's in a fixed sign, whatever happened before is gaining speed now. And just remember that indecision is also a decision, especially when it comes to the power plays, because we do have, for this new moon, we do have Mars and Pluto being exact in their opposition to each other. And so things really heat up on the moon in Scorpio. And of course, the moon in Scorpio is ruled by this opposition in particular. Both the traditional ruler and the modern ruler of Scorpio are opposing each other in a major battle of power plays when it comes to relationships. So just keep that in mind. It is a relationship time. And it's very much a make or break time when it's talking about who has the power and possibly where you are giving up your power on a collective and personal level. And so that is Friday. All right, so ending the week off on Saturday, we'll have the moon coming into a conjunction with Mercury. This is emotional communication. Because it's Scorpio, it's intense emotional conversation. Mercury can be about not only like questions and debate, as well as like moving as well, but it is how we connect with others. And so because it's in a traditionally Mars ruled sign, it can be, a time where we're more reflecting inward on our own kind of thoughts and our thought processes, possibly playing devil's advocate with ourselves. But it's a more reflective time as well. It is making a sextile to Pluto in Capricorn at this time. And so it's just a time where we have a lot of intense thoughts, a lot of tense communication. It's a bit more of a serious day. This day, I think more so than any, is really a time where we can see tension still very much being a part of today when it comes to relationships. But I think it does, because we do have the sextiles and then the trine with this conjunction with Mercury and the moon in Scorpio to Mars and Cancer, there is an opportunity. There is an opportunity to kind of find some sort of resolution with others, but it does make or break the relationship, I think, more so than any day throughout this week. Editing Micah here. I just wanted to add in something that I did not say in the original video as I was editing it. I just wanted to kind of bring this back in. So when we have the Two of Swords for the new moon in Scorpio, it can just be a back and forth in relationships. The new moon is going to be Mars centered. However, because when we have the Two of Swords, because it's the moon in Libra card, it's automatically going to bring some changes in when it comes to relationships, or a lot of emotion when it comes, to relationships, which can bring a lot of indecision. Hence the back and forth and the debate and the debate that can come in through that. Indecision, yes, is very much a decision, but there can be a need to take time and reflect, which is something that Scorpio energy does very well at. It'll take time to deconstruct things and cut things open to understand what's happening on a deeper level, deal with them, and then act. And so when we're looking at the Two of Swords, when we're looking at the Two of Swords, the best thing that we can do is strategize. This is unrelated to the new moon in particular, what I'm about to say next, but going back to the beginning of the week when we had those squares with Venus and Sagittarius, this can also be not just like indulging in sweet things or like, feeling like you want to treat yourself and hence overspending on things and, maybe not spending as much as we need to on necessities. And, that push and pull with like what is necessary versus what is treating myself. And I've had a hard week, and so I'm going to, treat myself kind of thing. But also with Venus being in Sagittarius, square Saturn, there can be like, again, this overbearingness or this kind of like entitlement that we can see with people around us. With the moon being in Virgo, it can be a feeling of like we're kind of giving in to those demands of others, or we are putting those demands on others. We're expecting more of others around us, but I would say more so it can be, seen from both sides. We can be overly critical of others, and not looking at the big picture, especially when it comes to ourselves. We can be overly critical of like what are we trying to create when we have like, Saturn and Pisces being opposed to the moon. We can be overly critical of everybody, but I think with Venus being in the mix, it adds in a little bit of entitlement, and I don't think it's conscious at all. I think it's very much unconscious. And so just be aware of that can definitely be something that comes up. And since the moon is in Virgo, and Virgo is very much about being of service to others, we can find ourselves becoming overly in service to other people. Like if they call, we are there. We are being overly generous with our time. So I think with Virgo energy, it's really good, especially since we're going into moon in Libra right after that, to establish boundaries. All right, that was all I wanted to add in. And so enjoy the rest of the video. When we have the moon and Mercury together in general, it can be a time where we're just really focusing on the past, or we're thinking about the past quite a bit. I want to kind of just bring it to your attention, especially with the Venus and Sagittarius opposition to Jupiter in Gemini, when you're talking about thinking about the past, about focusing too much on what things were. We don't have, for the tarot card for today, or for Saturday, we don't have the Six of Cups, but it gives very much Six of Cups energy. You can focus a lot on how things used to be, or the good times of a relationship. But I think it's also a time, because we still have that opposition between Mars and Pluto, that ultimatums are being given. Not only just because of Mars and Pluto being in opposition, but because Venus and Jupiter are in opposition. And so it's the planet that has most to do with relationships, being in a Jupiter-ruled sign, against Jupiter, which is like king of the gods in Gemini. And so it's these conversations about what is needed, especially when it comes to freedom and expansiveness. Venus in Sagittarius loves to adventure out. It likes to explore. It likes to find the new in a situation. It loves to learn. Jupiter in Gemini is not a very comfortable place for Jupiter. It's focusing more so on the small details of things, especially when we're talking about this opposition. It's like the small details of relationships on. And it's debating what is and is not worth it, what is and is not working. And that's why I say there are some sort of ultimatums being handed out in relationships between these two oppositions with Venus and Jupiter, as well as Mars and Pluto. It can be a great time of emotional release. And I think that vulnerability can definitely help relationships, but we all have free will, especially when it comes to, are you possibly subconsciously being blind to a problem in a relationship? As far as just trying to keep the peace. So basically, are you trying to just kind of like wave things off, just like we said at the beginning of the week? Today in particular can also be a feeling, it can like create a feeling of false security in relationships. If you're obviously not dealing with the problem, sure, things can be swept under the rug. We have that Venus Jupiter opposition. Sure, things can continue as they are. But because of that Mars Pluto opposition that will be just kind of living in for the rest of this year at at the very least, like the fight is not over, even if you don't decide, this isn't working in a relationship, or I will not, bend or yield to this ultimatum. Those things are going to come back up. So I guess the upside is, if you're not ready to give an answer, you can move past it today, but just know it'll come back up. And the false sense of security that you created is indeed false. As long as we know that, friend, as long as we know that, I think you're good. Which brings me to the false sense of security. We have the Jupiter in Pisces card, which is the Ten of Cups. I think the biggest thing with the Ten of Cups, because the Ten of Cups textbook definition is domestic peace, but I always read this card more so as inner peace. Inner peace yields domestic peace, whether it's literally in your house or in like your environment. When you find the stillness within yourself, and then you find the joy within yourself, everything changes externally. You will let certain things dissolve because they no longer align with you and your ultimate goals, or it doesn't rise to the same vibration as you. And so those things are cleared out, and it allows things to come, like the things that are meant for you and are aligned to you, to really be able to come to you and attract to you much easier and better. But this is more a day of peace, finding inner peace or finding the inner stillness. I think it's hard won. Anytime we have a 10, it is the end of something, or the end of a journey, which this week is definitely a journey. Lots of intensity this week. But I think, with the 10 of Cups being what it is, and the Jupiter and Pisces card, it's definitely saying, like, there's a lot of emotions being given, not given. What is the word? I've been having issues with words all week, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. There have been a lot of emotions being emoted. There we go. But I think also, there is like definitely a breakthrough if you choose to dissolve the things that need to be dissolved. That's very much Pisces energy. And, opening up to understanding a situation from more than a superficial kind of viewpoint. And that allows you to kind of find the more authentic inner joy that is needed when we're talking about Scorpio energy as well as Pisces energy. And I think it's a nice way to end the week out. Editing Micah here again. I wanted to add in a little bit of an insight that I got while I was editing. The 10 of Cups can also just be someone like waving the white flag, being like, okay, that's enough, especially with all the mutable energy that we have going on this week. Mutable means changeable. And so just a lot of things. We have a lot of moving parts, especially obviously when it comes to relationships, since we have all the oppositions are always going to be relational. And so when we have the 10 of cups, I see that more so as somebody being like either begrudgingly being like, all right, I'll wave the white flag, which can be its own red flag. I'll wave the white flag because this just is not something I want to continue to drag out anymore. Jupiter and his Pisces can be very much like, I'm just tired. It can also just be a lot of water too. And so I'm wondering if during the last half of the week, we're just going to get a lot of rain. I haven't looked at the weather yet, but whenever I get that like little intuitive hit, like surrounding certain astrological events, and I can never really name them on why I feel that way. But I feel like the 10 of Cups is also coming up because there will be a lot of water that day. And so I'm saying it now, just in case. I think there's going to be a lot of water. There can also be issues with water that come up collectively or personally for people. Obviously, that doesn't apply to everybody, but I'm going to say it anyway. There could be a lot of water. There can be a lot of emoting, but that can also mean there's a lot of tears and just kind of surrendering. Remember that Pisces in particular in the tarot is the hangman. And so it's broadening your perspective through surrender and divine intervention. But yeah, that's all I have to say. And I think we're almost at the end of the video. And so yeah, enjoy the outro and I'll see you guys in the next one. But other than that, I hope this was helpful for you guys. Let me know in the comments how you guys are faring. How was last week for you guys? I know that it was just very intense for me during that last half of the week, especially on Thursday. And I do believe I said on Thursday it was going to be a doozy. And so let me know how you fared last week. I hope that this week is equally as productive and just good for you in general. As always, like, share, comment, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Other than that, guys, I will talk to you in the next one. Bye.